Hello, and welcome to our presentation titled Climate Change in the Southern Halves of Portugal and Spain through Paleo-Proxy Records. My name is Jonathan, and I will be talking about the terrestrial flora in the subregion.
My name is Christian, and I'll be covering boreholes in our subregion.
My name is Teresa, and I will be covering Loess and Aeolian dust.
Portugal and Spain, located in the Iberian Peninsula, are in Mediterranean climatic zones that contain several kinds of Paleo-Proxy records. Both countries can be found at the southern edge of the Faroe Cell, which partially helps in allowing these two countries to have their Mediterranean climates. The southern subregions of both Portugal and Spain, circled in the Köppen climate map in Figure 1, contain a warm to hot Mediterranean climate that provides information about the climate of the region, both past and present. This subregion hosts a relatively diverse habitat of flora that can even present a threat to its own subregion. This area also has plant fossils that can offer a glimpse of what the biodiversity in the Cretaceous period looked like, as well as what kind of climate was present during that period of time. Boreholes are also studied here, and these paleoproxy records help with identifying different characteristics of Portugal and Spain's climates, including changes in temperature. Loess and Aeolian dust, thanks to the winds this region experiences, helps researchers with studying the subregion's climate by providing soil and sediment deposits that have been kicked up from the wind. With such a strong Mediterranean climate, information from boreholes, terrestrial flora, and Loess and Aeolian dust can paint a picture of what is going on in the subregion's climate and what is to come in the near future. The flora in this subregion is diverse in species native to a Mediterranean climate. However, the present diversity in plant species was not always like this. In an article published in 2022 by Elsie Marie Fries and colleagues, an exposure of sediment layers near Catafica, Portugal, shown in the sediment exposure in Figure 2, contained a host of plant fossils from the Cretaceous period that give an insight into the kind of plant diversity that was present in this area. The most common plant fossils discovered in this site were angiosperms of lost or unknown lineages. Another discovery from these fossils is the kind of environment present during the Cretaceous period. The angiosperm fossils lacked any kind of wood, suggesting that there was open vegetation with small herbaceous angiosperms. Elsie Marie Fries also notes that these fossils support the warm and tropic climate commonly found in other points of data pertaining to the general climate of the Cretaceous period, and provide a preview into what this area of Portugal looked like. While the plant fossils found in this exposure in Catafica can give insight into the kind of climate this region once had, studying the flora present today can also provide information on the current climate and environment. Southern Spain contains many plant species, but one that has been seen as invasive and a threat to the biodiversity of the subregion is the Aleppo pine, or Pinus halpensis. In a 2023 article published by Juan Garcia de Lomas et al., they state that the Aleppo pine tree, when planted outside of designated forest areas, is outcompeting native shrubland communities, posing a threat to many of the shrub species that are currently endangered. In an experiment conducted and analyzed by Garcia de Lomas et al., presented in Figure 3, the researchers divided the land in the image into three separate plots: invaded land, treated land, and uninvaded land. At the end of the experiment, several discoveries were made, one of which revealed that the removal of the Aleppo pine in treated plots turned the landscape from a forest into a sun-exposed, medium-sized shrubland that had an increase in species richness and composition. This plant's invasive nature to southern Spain provides information of the climate in this subregion and what impact some plant species may have on it. In order to understand the climate in this subregion further, boreholes can provide data pertaining to the temperature in this subregion.
Moving on to boreholes, when we take a look at the Lisbon region of Portugal, we can see how the temperatures have changed through data collected from three different studies. The data collected in these studies are through the use of boreholes, which according to the NCEI, National Center for Environmental Information, is defined as a measurement that can provide insight into past temperatures, anomalies, or departures from geothermal gradient. Measurements taken from deeper layers tend to be warmer, can be used to identify significant surface temperature changes in previous eras. Boreholes themselves are described as narrow shafts, drilled into the ground either vertically or horizontally, like the image displayed. They are primarily used to provide information about long-term average temperatures. For example, a study titled Preliminary Ground Surface Temperature History in mainland Portugal, reconstructed from borehole temperature logs, states that there has been a gradual warming since the 18th century recorded from boreholes in the Lisbon region, more specifically during the years 1948 through 1949. The warming period was faster when compared to the air temperature record. Portugal followed with a cooling period up until the 80s, but a similar pattern was found when comparing the ground surface temperature to the air temperature records. The ground surface temperature cooled at a slower rate, and since then, Portugal has been in a gradual warming period. In addition to the warming trends reviewed by Correa and Safanda in 1998, it corresponds with a different study titled Repeated Temperature Logs from Czech, Slovenian, and Portuguese Borehole Climate Observatories by Safanda and others, in which they measure different temperatures in boreholes across different countries. The specific data that corresponds comes from a borehole named Caravalina in Portugal. They reported that in an 8-year interval, the temperature gradually increased 0.03 Celsius by the end of 8 years. In a study called New Insights and Reconstructed Temperature in Portugal over the last 400 years, they compared LUT 2004, which is a study that measured temperatures in Portugal through the use of boreholes. When they compared the findings from LUT 2004 to simulations done by Correa and Safanda, they found that the simulations were almost exactly similar to the data found in LUT 2004, which is the warming of temperatures. Evidently enough, there has been a warming in the past 2 decades in the temperate Portugal-Spain region that has been observed through frequent logging, and this warming of the climate has also had a strong influence on temporal changes.
Lastly, we focus on loess, also known as Aeolian, in our chosen subregion. Loess can be present in a mix of dry-warm climate, which has been the same or roughly warmer in the past, since there is data that states loess has been present for about 7,000 years. Evidence from the Loess Debye helps explain human migration partly due to the climate change, which allows for better human development. The climate record found along these two southern countries contain a warmer and drier climate, which becomes ideal for the deposition of loess. In Figure 8, we can observe how in Spain the temperatures are warmer and why this subregion is home to many thick sheets of loess. Figure 9 shows us the Iberian steppe, or what we would see with the naked eye, and how it looks covered in loess dust. Wind plays an important role when it comes to loess dust, as it deposits the size grains as shown in Figure 10. But it is important to mention that researchers have concluded that the dust can either be regional, neighboring, or even come from a distance. According to the loess fraction, these silt size grains can vary in sizes from 0.02 millimeters to 0.05 millimeters, but this variation can be attributed to its area of origin. Having to point out exactly what materials compose each grain of loess is still difficult till this day due to the different regions or countries, and they differ from sediment types. However, the thick blankets can range in thickness from 3 feet to about 16.5 feet. A reading from 2010 claimed that 10% of the land surface of Earth was actually covered in loess. This is important to us humans because the loess covered surfaces are great fields for agriculture due to the fertile soil. In some cases, it is even known to be used in the making of houses as they use loess-based adobe. There is an endless amount of information regarding loess dust. There is so much we already have studied and so much more that we need to study to better comprehend climate change in the Portugal/Spain southern halves. It is evident we see a warming trend in Portugal/Spain. Whether it is through the Paleo-Proxy records or terrestrial flora, boreholes, and loess Aeolian dust. From angiosperm fossils or terrestrial flora records, a warm climate has been a consistent trend since the Cretaceous period. We can see multiple studies capturing long-term warming through the use of boreholes. And lastly, the thriving evidence of low estepi due to the warmer and drier climate of Spain, Portugal. By gathering all this past information, we can predict that the climate in Spain/Portugal will continue to gradually warm as we head into the future due to these current trends. Thank you.